This is the story of a camping trip I will never forget. I'm going to tell you exactly what happened that night, and I hope you're ready. Because once I start, you won't be able to stop listening. It all happened 3 years ago, in the middle of October. The weather was cold but not freezing, just the kind of chill that makes a fire feel perfect. My friends and I, Alex, Priya, Jordan, and I, had planned this camping trip for months. We were excited, full of energy, and honestly, looking to escape the noise of the city. We picked a forest that was about 4 hours away from town. It was far, but not too far. Quiet, green, and the kind of place where you didn't hear a single car or phone buzz, just trees and birds and wind. We reached the camping spot around 4 in the evening. The sun was already starting to go down. We set up our tents, started a fire, and laughed while roasting marshmallows. It felt perfect. Just us, the forest, and the crackling fire. But looking back now, I remember the first strange thing that happened. It was small, but it stayed with me. While we were setting up the tents, I noticed something hanging from a branch. It looked like a doll, a small handmade figure made of sticks and string. I thought it was just someone being artistic or maybe even a leftover decoration. I pointed it out to Jordan, and he shrugged. Probably someone playing Blair Witch, he joked. We laughed. We shouldn't have. Later that night, we sat around the fire telling scary stories. That was our tradition. Each one would try to outscare the others. When it was my turn, I decided to go big and made up a ghost story about a man who went missing in those very woods. Everyone clapped and pretended to be scared. But right after that, we heard something. A snap, like a branch breaking not far from us. We all went quiet. Alex called out, "Hello?" No answer. We looked into the trees but saw nothing. Still, it was the forest. Could be a deer. Could be the wind. That's what we told ourselves. So we went to bed. Now here's where things started to go wrong. Around 2 a.m. I woke up. I didn't know why at first. It was dead silent. No wind, no bugs, no rustling. Just nothing. And then I noticed my tent's zipper. It was halfway open. I was sure I had closed it. I sat up, my heart pounding. I peeked outside. I didn't see anyone. I zipped it back up and tried to calm down. Maybe I forgot. Maybe I was being paranoid. But when we all got up the next morning, things got weirder. Priya said she heard footsteps around her tent last night. Slow, crunching footsteps. She thought it was one of us, but we all said no. Then Jordan found something behind his tent. Another doll. This one looked newer than the one we saw yesterday. Its eyes were made from shiny black buttons. We were all uneasy, but Alex tried to laugh it off. Okay, someone's messing with us. Let's just move deeper into the woods, away from any creepy artist. And for some reason, we agreed. We hiked about 2 miles deeper and found a clearing. It looked peaceful, like a perfect circle of safety. We set up camp again and tried to shake off the weird feeling, but that night, it got worse. At exactly midnight, we heard chanting. I swear to you, chanting. Soft, low, like whispers carried by the wind. It wasn't English. It didn't sound like any language I knew. We turned off our flashlights and sat silently in our tents, listening. Then came the footsteps again. But this time, they weren't just near one tent. They circled all of us. Around and around. Crunch, pause, crunch. Faster now. Then it stopped. I didn't sleep that night. In the morning, we all looked at each other, pale and tired. Priya had tears in her eyes. Jordan refused to talk. And Alex, he looked angry, like he wanted to punch the air. We packed everything. We had to leave. That's when we realized our path was gone. The trail we took to get there, the one we had marked with ribbons and chalk on trees, it had vanished. The marks were gone. The path looked unfamiliar, like the forest changed itself overnight. We walked for hours trying to find the way out. But it was like walking in a circle. No matter which way we went, we ended up back in the same clearing. Then we heard something that still haunts me. A voice, it called out from the trees. A woman's voice. Soft, broken. "Help me." We froze. No one moved. Then again, "Help me." Priya whispered, "Do not answer. Do not speak." She grew up hearing stories from her grandmother about forest spirits and traps. And in that moment, I believed every one of them. We stayed quiet. But Alex, he called back, "Where are you?" We turned to him, eyes wide. But it was too late. The voice responded, but now it was different. Not soft, not human. It said his name. Alex. That was it. We ran. We ran in one direction without stopping. Branches hit our faces. Roots grabbed our feet. But we didn't stop. And finally, after hours, we saw a road. A real road. With a parked truck. We burst out of the trees, shouting and waving. The man in the truck looked shocked. He said we looked like we hadn't eaten or slept in days. But we'd only been gone 2 nights. We drove back in silence. No one said a word. Not even when the man asked what happened. Back home, we tried to go back to normal life. But things changed. Priya moved to another city. She never goes near forests now. Jordan started sleeping with the lights on. And Alex, well, a week later he went missing. They found his car parked at the edge of that same forest. But they never found him. And you know what was on the driver's seat? A small doll with button eyes. So, the next time someone invites you to a fun little camping trip in the woods, think twice. And if you ever hear a voice calling for help, don't answer. Because not everything out there is human, and some things don't want you to leave. This is the story of a camping trip gone terribly wrong. I'm going to tell you exactly what happened, and once you hear it, you might never want to step into the woods again. It started as a fun weekend plan. 4 of us, me, Sarah, Jake, and Ben, decided to go camping in Black Hollow Forest. Jake had found it online. It wasn't a popular spot, which made it perfect for what we wanted. Peace, quiet, and no phone signal. Just nature and some beers by the fire. We left early Saturday morning. The drive was long, but the forest was beautiful. Tall trees, a clear river, and the kind of silence that makes you breathe deeper. It felt untouched. By afternoon, we had set up our tents beside a small clearing, surrounded by thick woods. We laughed, told jokes, and took photos like every normal group of friends would. We had no idea what was waiting for us once the sun went down. That evening, we built a fire and started drinking. Jake brought marshmallows, and Sarah played music from her speaker. We were happy. Around 10 p.m., we heard something. Branches, snapping coming from the forest. We paused. Jake stood up, flashlight in hand, and pointed it toward the sound. Probably just a deer, he said, but it didn't feel like a deer. The sound was too slow, too careful, like footsteps. We waited. Nothing came out of the woods, and eventually the sound stopped. We tried to laugh it off and went back to our drinks, but that sense of peace, it was gone. By midnight, we all went to our tents. Mine was closest to the edge of the woods. I zipped myself in, pulled my sleeping bag over me, and stared at the ceiling of the tent. I couldn't sleep. Then I heard it, whispers, faint, almost too soft to notice. At first I thought it was the wind, but then I heard it clearly, a voice. "Come out." I froze. My heart was beating so fast it hurt. I didn't move. I didn't even breathe. "Come out." It sounded like a child's voice, but there were no kids around here. We were deep in the woods. I stayed in my tent, eyes wide open, until morning. When the sun came up, I ran to the others. "Did anyone hear that last night?" I asked. Ben looked confused. Jake shook his head, but Sarah, she was pale. "I thought I heard a voice too," she said. "I thought I was dreaming." We looked around the campsite. That's when we saw something tied to a tree. It was a stick figure, like a little man made of twigs and string hanging from a branch. It hadn't been there before. "Okay, who's trying to be funny?" Jake asked, half laughing. No one answered. Ben took it down and tossed it in the fire. The wood cracked and popped as it burned. Looking back, we should have left right then, but we didn't. We hiked a little that afternoon, trying to shake off the weirdness. The forest was quiet, too quiet. No birds, no insects, just the sound of our footsteps. We got back to camp in the evening, and that's when things really turned strange. Sarah's tent was slashed open, a clean cut right across the middle. Nothing inside was taken, but her clothes were tossed around, like someone, or something, had gone through them. We looked at each other. No one had stayed behind. We had all been together. Jake started getting angry. "This has to be someone messing with us. Maybe locals trying to scare campers away." "But..." Ben shook his head. "Then why not just tell us to leave? Why the dolls, the whispers?" That night, no one slept. We all stayed near the fire, keeping watch. Jake held a pocket knife. Ben had a small hatchet. I had nothing but a flashlight and a racing heart. Around 2 a.m., the fire started to die down. Sarah got up to get more wood. That's when we heard her scream. We all ran after her voice. She was standing by the edge of the forest, staring at something on the ground. Another doll, bigger than the last. This one had hair, real human hair, and small black buttons for eyes. Its mouth was stitched with red thread. Sarah was shaking. I didn't see it before. It was just there, like it appeared out of nowhere. We grabbed her and ran back to the fire. No one said anything. We sat there staring at the trees. Then we saw lights, small flickering lights in the woods, like lanterns. But they weren't steady. They blinked and moved fast between the trees. Ben stood up. "I think someone's out there." I pulled him back down. "No, we're not going into those woods." He hesitated, but deep down, we all knew. Something was wrong with this forest. We made it to sunrise without sleeping. The moment light broke through the trees, we packed everything up. Fast. We didn't eat, we didn't talk, we just ran back to the car, and when we finally got there, our tires were slashed, all four, cut clean through. Jake cursed. We were stuck. No phone signal, no other people. Just the four of us, in a forest that clearly didn't want us there. We decided to walk. It was a long way to the nearest road, but we had no choice. As we moved, the forest felt different. The air was heavier. The trees seemed closer together. The path we had taken in, it wasn't there anymore. It was like the forest had changed. We walked for hours. The sun stayed high, but we didn't get anywhere. No roads, no cars, no sign of help. Then we heard it again. Whispers, all around us. This time louder, angry. Get out, get out, get out. We ran. Branches scratched our faces. The ground was uneven. Sarah fell, but we picked her up. We just kept running until, finally, we broke through the trees and found ourselves standing on a highway. A passing truck stopped. The driver looked at us like he'd seen ghosts. He said we were lucky. People had gone missing in Black Hollow before. Some were found. Most weren't. We told the police everything. They went back with a team the next day. They found our slashed tent, the ashes from our fire, and something else. Hundreds of dolls, hanging from trees, all around the clearing, and in the center, the one Ben had thrown into the fire, untouched. Like it had never burned at all. We never went back. We don't even talk about it anymore. But sometimes late at night I dream of the whispers. They call my name now, and I wake up with the sound of footsteps outside my window. So if anyone ever invites you to camp in Black Hollow Forest, say no, because some places don't want visitors, and if you go, you might not come back the same. This is the story of a camping trip that went completely wrong. I'm about to tell you what really happened out there in the woods, and trust me, after this, you might think twice before you ever go camping again. It all began one early fall weekend about 2 years ago. My friends, Emily, Mark, Liam, and I, decided to take a break from city life and go camping at Pine Ridge Forest. We'd heard it was beautiful and quiet, the kind of place you could really get away from everything. No phones, no noise, just nature. We arrived just before sunset on Friday. The forest was thick and smelled of pine and earth. We set up our tents near a small clearing by a stream. Emily, who's always been the most adventurous, found some dry wood for the fire while Mark unpacked the food. Liam and I helped with the tents. Everything felt perfect. That night we built a campfire and sat around it telling stories and roasting marshmallows. The air was crisp and cool, the stars shining bright above. But then, just as we were about to call it a night, something strange happened. From the deeper part of the forest came a soft humming sound. At first it was barely noticeable, like a tune carried by the wind. But the more we listened, the more the humming grew louder, and it wasn't music we recognized. It was eerie, almost like chanting in a language none of us knew. Maybe it's just some animals, Liam suggested nervously. No animal I know makes sounds like that, Mark said, his voice low. Emily stood up, flashlight in hand. Let's check it out, she said. Against our better judgment, we agreed and followed the sound into the trees. The deeper we went, the quieter our steps became. The humming was now a steady rhythm, pulsing through the air. Suddenly we stopped. In a small clearing ahead, we saw something that made our blood run cold. There was a circle of stones on the ground, perfectly arranged. Inside the circle were dozens of small dolls, hanging from tree branches and scattered on the dirt. They were handmade, twigs, cloth, Even some had human hair. Their button eyes seemed to stare right at us. Emily stepped forward, reaching for one of the dolls, but I grabbed her arm. "Wait," I whispered. The humming stopped instantly, like someone flipped a switch. The forest went dead silent. Then, from the shadows, a figure appeared. It was hard to see clearly. Tall, thin, cloaked in dark clothes that blended with the night. The figure's face was hidden, but I felt those button eyes from the dolls staring through me. "Who's there?" Mark called out. No answer, just silence. Suddenly, the figure raised a hand, pointing toward us. The dolls began to sway, their tiny heads turning slowly, like they were alive. We didn't wait to see more. We ran, back the way we came, crashing through the trees, heart pounding in our chests. When we reached the campsite, it felt like we'd escaped a nightmare, but the feeling of being watched didn't leave us. That night was the worst. None of us slept. Every few minutes we heard faint footsteps circling our tents, slow and deliberate. At one point, Mark swore he saw the cloaked figure standing just beyond the firelight watching us. Morning came, but it didn't bring relief. Emily found her tent door slashed open. Inside, the dolls were scattered across her sleeping bag, arranged to form a smiley face. We wanted to leave immediately, but then Liam discovered something worse. Near the edge of the camp, carved into the bark of a massive tree, were words, "Stay forever." Panic took over. We packed up as fast as we could, but when we tried to leave, the path we took in was gone. The forest had changed. The familiar trail markers we'd left behind were nowhere to be found. Hours passed. The sun climbed high, but we were trapped. That's when the chanting returned, louder, closer, surrounding us. "Come play. Stay with us." It wasn't coming from one place, but all around. The dolls began appearing at the edge of our vision, in the trees, on rocks, hanging from branches like silent watchers. We didn't speak. We didn't move, until Emily suddenly dropped to her knees, tears streaming down her face. "They want us," she sobbed. The figure appeared again, stepping out into the clearing. "Why?" I asked, voice shaking. The figure's hood fell back to reveal a pale young woman with empty eyes that reflected nothing but darkness. "To join the forest," she whispered, "to never leave." We turned and ran, deeper and deeper into the woods, the dolls falling from branches and trees, tumbling after us like a curse. Finally, exhausted and terrified, we broke through the tree line to a small country road. A car stopped for us, and we climbed in without a word. Back in the safety of the city, we tried to forget the horrors of Pine Ridge, but the forest had changed us. Emily disappeared 2 weeks later. No note, no call, just gone. Mark and Liam moved away. And me? I can still hear the humming in my dreams. I still find tiny dolls hidden in my apartment, on my windowsill, in my shoes, even under my pillow. So, if you ever hear about Pine Ridge Forest and think about camping there, please don't. Because some places don't want visitors, and sometimes the forest keeps its secrets by taking those who come too close. This is the story of a camping trip that started like any other but turned into something none of us will ever forget. So, listen carefully, because what I'm about to tell you might make you think twice before heading out into the wild. It was a chilly October weekend when 4 friends, Rachel, Tom, Daniel, and I, Decided to escape the city and go camping in the Ravenwood Forest. We'd heard it was quiet, a perfect spot to unwind, far away from the noise and lights. We packed our gear, loaded the car, and set off early Saturday morning, excited for 2 days of fresh air and starry skies. The drive was smooth, and when we arrived, the forest looked stunning. Tall, dark trees towered above us and a soft fog lingered in the air. We found a small clearing beside a slow-moving stream, perfect for setting up camp. Rachel was the best at pitching tents, so she took charge while Tom gathered firewood. Daniel and I unpacked the supplies. That first night, after the fire was crackling and we had roasted some marshmallows, the mood was light and easy. We shared stories, laughed at old jokes, and enjoyed the peacefulness around us. But as the night deepened, something changed. Around 11 p.m., just as we were settling down, Tom suddenly sat up and said he thought he heard footsteps outside the camp. We all stopped and listened. At first there was nothing but silence. Then, faint rustling came from the edge of the trees. Daniel grabbed a flashlight and shone it into the darkness. For a moment we thought we saw movement, a shadow slipping between the trees. But when we called out, no one answered. Probably a deer, I said, trying to calm the nerves. We decided to stay close to the fire, keeping the light and warmth between us and the forest. But the rustling didn't stop. Every few minutes it came closer, then faded again. Suddenly Rachel pointed toward the woods. "Look," she whispered. There, just at the edge of the clearing, was a small figure. It was a child, maybe 8 or 9 years old, standing still and staring at us, pale skin, dark eyes, and wearing old, dirty clothes that looked out of place in the forest. "Hey, are you lost?" Rachel called softly. The child didn't answer. Instead, it turned and disappeared quickly into the trees. That's when the cold feeling hit us, the kind that crawls up your spine and makes your skin tingle. We tried to shake it off and went to our tents to sleep, but I barely closed my eyes before I heard the whispering, soft voices calling my name. "James. James." I looked around. No one was there. The whispering grew louder, coming from all directions. Suddenly, the fire snapped and went out. The night was pitch black. I grabbed my flashlight, but it flickered and died. I could hear footsteps now, slow, heavy, coming closer. I called out to my friends, but only silence answered. Then I saw it. A pair of glowing eyes staring at me from the shadows. I ran, heart pounding, desperate to find the others. When I reached Rachel's tent, it was empty. Daniel and Tom were gone. Panic set in. I stumbled through the darkness, calling their names, but only the whispering followed me. Hours later, as dawn broke, I found them huddled near the stream, pale and shaking. They told me they'd been chased by something unseen, something that didn't want us in Ravenwood. That day we packed up and left, never looking back. But even now, sometimes at night, I hear the whispers. And I wonder, was that child real or something else? So, if you ever plan to camp in Ravenwood Forest, beware, because some places hold secrets better left alone. This is the story of a camping trip gone horribly wrong, the kind of story that makes you second-guess your plans to ever sleep outdoors again. It happened about 3 years ago, and the people involved were my friends, Jake, Sarah, Matt, and me, Ben. We decided to go camping in Black Hollow Woods, a place known locally for its eerie silence and strange disappearances that no one talked about openly. Naturally, that only made it more tempting for us. We wanted adventure and a break from the usual. We left on a Friday afternoon, the sun still warm but starting to dip. The drive was long but easy, and by early evening, we arrived at a clearing, by an old, forgotten hiking trail. We pitched our tents quickly, eager to start a fire and enjoy the night under the stars. Jake was the one who handled the fire. Sarah was unpacking the food, Matt was checking the map, and I was setting up the lanterns. Everything felt normal, peaceful even. As the fire roared, we roasted some sausages, cracked open some drinks, and told stories around the flickering flames. The woods around us seemed to hold their breath. No crickets, no owls, no rustling leaves, just an unnatural stillness. Around 11 p.m., Jake decided to take a quick walk to relieve himself. We told him to be careful and waited for him to come back. Minutes passed. Then, half an hour. Jake didn't return. We started calling for him, voices echoing in the silence, but there was no answer. Feeling uneasy, Matt and I grabbed our flashlights and headed into the woods to find him. Sarah stayed behind at the camp, her eyes wide and scared. The deeper we went, the darker and thicker the forest became. Our flashlight beams cut through the black, revealing twisted trees and fallen branches, but no sign of Jake. Then, Matt stopped, suddenly, and whispered, "Do you hear that?" At first, I heard nothing but the sound of our breathing and footsteps. Then came a faint, eerie humming, soft, almost hypnotic. It was a strange melody, like a lullaby, but warped and distorted. It seemed to come from all directions. We kept moving, following the sound, hoping it would lead us to Jake. After a few minutes, we stumbled into a small clearing where the moonlight spilled onto the ground. That's when I saw it. There, lying on the dirt, was Jake's jacket, torn and dirty. My heart pounded. "Jake?" I called, but only the humming answered. Suddenly, the humming stopped. An icy silence took over. From behind a tree, something stepped out. It was a man, tall, thin, and pale, wearing old clothes that looked like they belonged to another century. His eyes were hollow and dark, and his mouth stretched into a thin, unnatural smile. Matt grabbed my arm. "Let's go. Now." We turned and ran without looking back. The man's smile burned into my mind. When we reached the campsite, Sarah was crying. "I heard footsteps around the tent," she said, "like someone was watching us." We packed up as fast as we could, our nerves shot, but as we walked back to the car along the trail, the humming started again, this time louder, almost welcoming. We picked up the pace, but the trail seemed to twist and turn on its own, making it impossible to find the car. Hours passed. We were lost, cold, hungry. Then the humming stopped again. In the silence, we heard something else. Whispers. Not human voices, but something darker, crueler. Suddenly, a cold breeze brushed past us. Matt screamed. We turned to see the man from the clearing standing right behind us, smiling wider than any human should. We ran blindly, branches scratching our faces, feet tripping on roots. Suddenly, Matt tripped and fell hard. We helped him up, but the man was gaining on us. Then, without warning, Jake appeared, his eyes empty, his face pale and blank. "Come," he said in a voice that wasn't his own. We froze. Jake's body moved like a puppet controlled by unseen strings. "Don't listen to him," I shouted. We pulled Matt up and ran again, finally breaking through the tree line. The car was exactly where we left it, but the doors were open and the keys were gone. We spent the night in the car, cold and terrified. In the morning, we called the police. They searched the woods for days but never found Jake or the strange man. After that night, none of us were the same. Sarah quit camping forever. Matt started having nightmares and wouldn't leave his house after dark. And me? Sometimes I still hear that humming, soft and sinister whenever I'm alone. So if you ever hear about Black Hollow Woods, just remember this. Some places aren't meant for us to visit, and some secrets in the dark should stay buried, because the forest never forgets.